What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Love and Rice podcast with your host, Aunt Ma.
I'm your other host, Christina.
And if you guys are new to this channel, make sure to
Welcome.
subscribe and follow us on all podcast platforms such as Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio. I think they don't have Google Podcasts anymore. Now they're YouTube podcasts. So there's like YouTube videos and then there's YouTube podcasts now.
Oh, yeah, there's like a
So-
separate section for podcasts specifically.
Yes. So I think all the Google ones moved over to YouTube. So if you guys have moved over, welcome to the new platform. And also we are on Instagram and TikTok. So make sure to give us a follow on all those as well. On today's episode, we are going to be talking about having kids close in age, sibling bonds and the challenges, because it gets very challenging for us. And sometimes you see the kids as well. But I want to talk about all that, and we can start off with when we've figured out it was a good idea to have our second child.
So I think growing up, knowing that I was closer in age with one of my brothers because we were 2 years apart.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was kind of cool just to like have that kind of dynamic because I had the comparison of that with like my sister, right? She and I are 8 to 9 years apart.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, if only we were closer in age, we could have done all these things and gone out and like bonded more over the same things. But we didn't get to do that. So I'm like, I think with that experience, I realized that like, hey, it would be really cool if our kids were closer in age.
Well, you and your brother who are closer in age, were you guys like best friends?
No.
Why?
Well, because we were very different. Because he's a guy, I'm a girl, and we had different types of friends. We like different types of music. There would be times where we would bond over the same kind of music, but he just kept changing the things that he would listen to, the type of people he would hang out with, and we were just completely different people.
Wow. Okay. Well, how many years apart are you and your brother?
2.
Oh, you guys are only 2 years apart?
Only 2 years. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
So you guys, it's weird because normally when you see kids close in age, you would think that they would be best friends, that they would hang out with the same people, and and for you guys, it was different.
Yeah. So, because like my oldest brother, he's 2 years apart from my brother. That's 2 years apart
Yeah.
from me. So it's 2 years, 2 years, 2 years. But we weren't best friends because we were all very different. Like we just all had different
Oh,
personalities.
no.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not looking forward to that with Leia and Enzo because they're 2 years apart, and right now they're like best friends.
True. But I don't know. I feel like because the dynamic was different, my brothers, they had each other first. And then when I came, I was the only girl. And then they would tag team on me and they would both pick on me together. So like they bonded over that and like
So-
liking boy stuff and games and all of that.
So it was more about your middle, I guess the middle brother, who's closer to you at age, was probably piggybacking off your oldest brother. So that's why he wasn't close to you.
Yes. And I think a lot of it also had to do with how our parents raised us as well, because my parents are very like traditional, old school Chinese parents, right? So they kind of treated my brothers very differently. They had more freedom. They got to do more things. Like they got to be more independent. But for me, I had to do most of the chores around the house. I had to like do the laundry. I had to clean more. Like I had more household responsibilities, whereas they could go and hang out with friends and use the computer and do all these other things that I couldn't do. Yeah.
Well, I think your childhood and your dynamic is definitely different from our kids because our kids is just 2 of them.
Right.
And that's all they have.
Yes.
So I guess this is more about, about families who have their first child right now and thinking about having their second and when they should have their second. Should they wait till, a lot of people tell me, we're going to wait till we're, I guess, we spent all the years we could with the first child.
Mm-hmm.
before we go into the second, right? Like we want to make sure the first child is good, and then we'll take care of the second child, and do those things. But like, is that too long to wait and too far of a gap between the first and second child?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it depends because I don't know, for some reason, every time we go anywhere, like we're going out, right? And I feel like this has happened multiple times recently. And we'll see just random people, they'll see us with our kids and they're all like so close and playing together. And they'll be like, how old are they? Oh, wow, that's cool. My kids are like 9 months apart each, or like, they have them all close together. And I think for them, they like having the idea of having like four kids that are like less than a year apart because they just want to get it all done with. Like they want to go through the diaper phase, the bottle feeding phase, potty training phase all together and just like be done with it completely. Whereas there are some people who they want to get the first child all settled, independent, and until they're ready to like take care of themselves more.
Yeah.
So then when they have the second child, that kid can actually help more with taking care of that
Mm.
kid.
Okay. Well, here, let's start off with when we thought it was a great idea to have our second child. For me, I remember it because I remember the exact moment I decided, okay, we need a second child.
Yeah.
And we always knew we were going to have at least two kids. Okay. Because we didn't want to have the kids to just play alone for, their entire life.
Yeah.
And when we are gone one day, we didn't want them to be alone. And so, having two was always in the back of our minds. And I think Leia was about 1.5 or almost 1.5, and she started getting, she started developing really fast. And now she's playing with toys by herself and learning so much, and it was so great that we got to spend all this time with her. But then there's times when we see her playing in the living room and she would be playing by herself. And as I look at her, I'm like, oh my gosh, she needs a sibling to play with. She looks like so bored right now playing with herself.
Yeah, it's like she's just like doing imaginary play, and at the same time she's like talking to herself and talking to the toys because she doesn't have anyone else to play with
Right.
her,
I mean,
right?
she doesn't know any better, right? She might have been having the
True.
time of her life. But as I'm watching that as a parent, I'm like, oh, this is
Yes.
sad. She needs a sibling right now to play with. And that's when I was like, okay, let's try for our second child.
Yeah.
And so we had our second kid, and they're 2 years apart. And I feel like there's so many benefits to this, and there's so many cons to this. Like, I guess some of the cons that I have is because they're so close in age, and having two kids in diapers at the same time is almost like having twins. And that
Right.
was probably the hardest part, right? It's like they both need to be fed, they both need their milks, they both need diaper changes, they both need to put to sleep. Like it was literally like having twins.
Yeah, it's like it's more demanding, and then you have to take the costs into consideration too, because you're like,
Yeah.
oh man, I gotta buy diaper. I have to buy double diapers, double
Yeah.
formula, double milk, all these things, and like diapers are expensive.
Yeah. So I feel like until the first child is 4 to 4.5, that's when they really start taking care of themselves more, right?
Right.
They're getting off diapers. They are definitely feeding themselves for a while now. But, at least by the time the first child is 4 years old, you're only dealing with a 2-year-old who's still kind of like a baby, right? And so it gets easier, but it takes like 2 years for you to have an easier time with the two kids.
Yeah.
But if you can hack those 2 years, it's so worth it because now that Leia is 6 and Enzo's 4, they play with each other so much. Every day, all day, they want to be together. They want to eat together. They want to drink their milks together. They take baths together. Like they do everything together.
True, but also the fact that they're close in age, they're with each other all the time, right? So they're like best friends, but also they still have their sibling rivalry. And it's like every single day they're like fighting about everything.
I think they play better together more often than they do fight. but they do fight every day and throughout the day. But
Yes,
they do
all
play
day.
longer together than they are arguing. Because
True.
like they're gonna argue, right? And they'd be like, "I didn't do that. Yes, you did. Oh, she hit me. She slapped me. She pushed me, or whatever." They have those little fights that they have, and then 1 second later, they're laughing together. You
Yeah,
know?
but that happens because we have to like we have to coach them and guide them through their
Right.
arguments. And maybe because you're working while that's happening and they're always following me. But then when they have an argument, they'll start, I don't know, like they have a different dynamic, and big sister might be a little bully to her little
Right.
brother, and I have to get them to understand that they need to play together better. They need to talk things out. They shouldn't get physical and like shove each other and stuff like that. And then maybe that's when you see them and they're like, ah ha ha, like they're laughing now because it's
Well,
all been settled.
last night before putting Leia to bed, and I was telling her, "Hey, Leia, you need to be a good big sister. You need to take care of Enzo. You need to be nice to him and stuff like that, right?" And she's like, "Okay, I will." And this morning when they woke up, I can hear them playing while we're still laying in bed, and they're playing together. And she's like, "Let's go pet Ryu." Okay, pet Ryu like this, Enzo. Do
Yeah.
this, and like she's now teaching him stuff. So it's like there are so many moments where big sister teaches Enzo so many things. And
Yes.
this guy is like following her around like a little poodle.
Like he
It's so
idol
funny.
yeah, she's his idol basically.
I mean, that's all he knows, right?
Yeah.
Um, but that's like one of the benefits I see about having the two kids is the laughter and the moments they share together makes it all worth it. Because when they laugh together, it's like the loudest and funnest laughs that they have.
Yeah, and I think it also helps them to learn how to socialize with each other too, right? Because a lot of kids they have to go to school to be able to learn how to play with other kids and how to
Right.
like share toys and all of these things. And I feel like because we've had them at such a close age together, at a younger age, like they were able to do that first at home, and then they take that to the school, and then they learn
Right.
more social skills.
I think one of the coolest things that Leia does when she goes to school is that there's a
Oh.
lot of projects that they do at school, and or they get a lot of rewards and things like that. And she always asks the teacher, "Can I make two sets of this project?" Of like, let's say they're making, I don't know, for example, a caterpillar drawing, or like some stuff that you glue together and make into a caterpillar. She'd be like, "Can I make two so I can give one to Enzo when I get out of class?" You know,
And that's
like,
something she picked up on her own too. Like we never told her about that. She just understood the concept
right.
of sharing and thinking about her brother.
Right. And then like if we go to the dentist or the doctor, she's like, "Can I have two stickers so I could give one to my brother?" And he's not even there. He's like at home with me and you're at
Yeah.
the doctor or whatever, vice versa. And so I love that she's always thinking about him. When we go to her school activities or school events, where it's like family day and Enzo's with us going to the school, and she starts introducing Enzo to all her friends. She goes, "Hey guys, this is my little brother Enzo," and she gives
Oh,
him like
that's
the sweetest
true.
hugs, and like it's so nice to see all that stuff.
Yeah, and there are always other families that are at these like school events, and not all most of them don't even do that. So it's like kind of cool
Yeah.
now that you bring it up because she is very like nurturing and protective of her brother and stuff. And she
Yeah.
is like one of the only ones that will be doing that in front of their
Yeah.
friends.
I I feel like so I have a lot of friends that I grew up with, during my childhood days and high school days. And I did have friends who in our circle of friends, there were two siblings that were very close. They were also they were 2 years apart, but one grade level apart, you know? And
Yeah.
so we were all in the same circle. So every day when we go hang out, it's the brother and sister. Sometimes they fight, which is really funny to watch. But you could tell that they're best friends because at the end of the day, after hanging out with my friends, they're still together and then they still have their own little bond that they have. Right. So it's just really cool to watch. And I feel like all these kids who are about 2 years apart, they're gonna grow up with the same circle of friends. And I don't know if that's
Possibly.
necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, but when I talk to other people other parents who said, "Yeah, we have two kids," and now they're like 13 and 15 and stuff like that. I'm like, "Oh, do they have the same group of friends?" Like,
They say
yes.
yes.
They say
Yeah.
yes.
Yep.
They go everywhere together. You know what I mean? And I think that's the greatest part because they can watch out for each other when they do things, right?
Yeah, and
So,
I think that's one of the biggest things. Like we wanted our kids to be around each other, so then they kind of know what's going on. So if like if one of the kids are having like a really deep issue at school and they're getting picked on or they're getting bullied or whatever it is, right? Like the other kid will be there to watch out for them and protect them, and let us know if something's going on. Because sometimes, being a teenager, like there are so many things that you've gone through and you don't want to speak up and you don't want to tell your parents because you feel like
right,
it's not going to do anything, and you just kind of get like stuck in this, I don't know, deep hole. Whereas if you have a sibling that's like actually a friend to you too, like
right.
they can actually come to you and
I
talk to you
mean,
about things.
I think even on a bigger level, once they pass the adolescent age and now they're in the real world of, over 18, um, they are there to help each other make the right decisions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whether it's like making the right decisions about jobs or what path to take, or now it's like maybe partying and it's like being responsible for each other, right? It's like, no, you shouldn't drink, or you better only have one, or
Yeah.
don't drive. Like they're there to be responsible for each other, right?
Hopefully, right?
Hopefully. And that's kind of what I look forward to. But then the cons of all this, when I saw my group of friends and the siblings, is they're so close to each other that if something were to happen to one of them, it just they get heartbroken, and it's the
Yeah.
saddest thing in the world. And that's what I'm afraid of for our kids. If one of them got hurt, how would the other one react to that?
Mm-hmm.
How hurtful is it for the one that watched someone get hurt? you know and so especially so far down the line when you and me are no longer here and
Yeah.
they have each other, but then when one of them is gone, now they're alone. Like, that's so sad. And so, like, I've always thought of, well, I want to have 3 or 4 kids because I want them to grow up all together forever and never go through that loneliness you
Yeah.
know
Well,
so
I mean, I think about that too because there's four of us, right? There's four siblings in my family. I'm like, oh, what happens if like one of us goes? Like, okay, well, we'll have each other. How's the dynamic gonna be? Um, and it's nice to know that there are other like siblings that will be there, like when
right,
your parents go or whatever the case is.
right.
But at the same time, I think that's why it was always so important for our parents to teach us to like have our own families and significant others and things like that too. Because if something happens, like yes, we'll have our siblings, but at the same time, your main line of support is like your family that you've
Yeah,
built.
no, it's true. It's just uh, you
What is that?
I'm trying to come up with like the right type of feelings and words here because no matter what, it's always going to be a separate connection that you have with your
With your sibling,
immediate family,
right?
you know?
Yeah, but I think it's better to have that connection rather than being like an only child and never experiencing that. So
Yeah.
it does hit deeper when something does happen, but at the same time, it's like you got this whole lifetime to be able to experience and cherish memories with your sibling, to get to that point.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
yeah.
do you think that we made the right choice of having our kids so close in age?
Yes, because I think that we had them at a good we had a good gap between them because I didn't want to try too soon and have them too close together because I wanted to be able to enjoy one before we had the other. And I just wanted to, ideally I wanted to have like more of a gap in between so that we would have time for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, like it's kind of hard when they're that young. But one of the things that I realized having them both so close together was that the firstborn had all of our time, all of our undivided attention. We got to like give them everything. We were always together. And then when we had the second kid had to share that time with the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of, family dynamic changes because now we're not all together all the time.
Right.
Because you have to take care of one kid now and I have to go and take care of the other kids. So it kind of like separated us a little bit and we didn't have that closeness. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly.
Overall, I feel like the four of us just do everything together still.
Yeah.
You know, and to the point where I'm like, do you think our kids should be more independent right now, separate from each other, you know, so they can learn their own things, right? Because right now, when they play together, Enzo is playing with Leia's toys, which are girl toys, right? And Leia is playing with Enzo's toys, which are boy toys, right? So it's like, do we actually need them to be more independent, you know, and do their own things so Enzo can learn how to play basketball, right? And Leia can pick up more about her painting and drawing that she loves so much.
Yeah, right? And I think that's something that we always talk about because a lot of the times Enzo just wants to play with her Barbies or he's like into pink sometimes and all of these things. And we're like, well, he just looks up to Leia and he just only knows all the things that she does and he watches her and he wants to be like her. But at the same time, now we're having these conversations where it's like, okay, Dad, I think you need to have more boy time with Enzo. You got to do more sports with him because he is actually like really athletic. He enjoys sports. Outdoor sports. Yeah. And Leia, she's just such a girly girl. And now they're at an age where we probably should consider doing our own stuff, right? Like you should be taking him to do things and I should be taking her to do like girl things and stuff like that.
It's hard too because sometimes when I try to take him somewhere, he goes, but what about Leia?
Yeah, right? Like, they're always asking for each other.
Like, I want to go with Leia, right? So it's hard, but they have to get used to that. It's funny because when I run into new people that I meet and I find out that they have younger brothers and stuff, I start picking their brain, right? And these are people who are our age.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, how was it for you growing up? You know, how was your little brother and stuff? And they're like, he wanted to do everything I wanted to do. He was playing with my Barbies. He was doing all this stuff. So I hear how like similar it is and how normal it is for younger siblings to do whatever it is that the older siblings do.
Yeah, because they just want to bond with them and play with them and be together with them. So to them, it's nothing.
So I'm trying to right now teach Enzo to be independent while they play with the same stuff, right? So like Leia has this Barbie dollhouse, a dream dollhouse that's like huge, right? It's like taller than her. And she's playing with these Barbies. And now I'm, you know, I see Enzo who's trying to play with like the furniture and all this stuff and the little dog and the elevator on it. I'm like, hey, Enzo, why don't you grab your Spider-Man and your Iron Man toys and put them in the dollhouse?
Yeah.
You know? And I'm like, and now I'm playing with him and we're shooting these Spider-Man webs and hanging from the top level of the Barbie dollhouse, right? And then Iron Man is kind of flying over the dollhouse and stuff. And so I'm trying to teach him that he can play with his own toys with her stuff too.
Yeah, because to him, he's probably like, oh, well, this is a Barbie dollhouse. Like, I can't put other people in this house. So now I think he understands.
Maybe he needs more other toys too, like dinosaur toys. And now he can have a dinosaur trying to break the dollhouse, right?
Oh my gosh.
Things like that. So it's like we have to get them to think independently and think outside of the box.
Yes. And I think that's one reason why it's important to kind of teach them to be more independent of each other so that they understand how like the lifestyle is like for who they are and to figure out what interests they have.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, just thinking back about like being close in age with my brother, like we didn't hang out at school or anything like that, but then like if there were events that would happen at school, like that was something that we would bond over or we would talk about or be like, oh, did you know that this happened today? Oh, this happened at school, blah, blah, blah. Like that's stuff that we can talk about. But then I remember being the younger sister too. Anytime we would pass each other at school, like I'd be like excited to look for him at school. I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's my brother right there. Because he was the cool older brother in my eyes, right? And I feel like that's how it's going to be too, like with Enzo, and he's going to see his sister at school and they're going to bump into each other. And I hope that's what the dynamic's going to be like.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I hope that, they do end up having like a close group of friends and that she takes him under her wing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I hope so. Right now, Enzo's in preschool and Leia is going into first
she's gonna be
grade.
a first grader.
And one more year, they will be in the same school together, right? He's going to be in kindergarten. She'll be in second grade. Will they be eating lunch together in the cafeteria by that time?
I think so. I
Like
think
how
up
cool
until
is that going
second
to be?
grade. Yeah.
Is is she going to be excited? That's the thing. Like the younger one is always excited to see the older one, but is the older one going to be excited to see the younger one?
I mean, it may not always be the case, but I know for her, she's like, "Oh, I can't wait. Like, when is he going to start coming to my school?"
Yeah.
And then yeah, she was like, "Oh yeah, the first graders still eat with the kindergartners depending on what teachers they have." But I feel like she would be so excited if they're eating lunch together and she'll
Yeah.
be bringing her friends over. She'll go to him and hug him, be like, "That's my brother."
I think the way to do that is to really keep the family values and explain to them how important brothers and sisters are. So as she gets older and she's experiencing new groups of friends, she has to always remember your brother is above those friends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because if it gets to the point where she thinks friends are more valuable, then now she's going to dismiss him as she gets older.
Yeah, and
You
that
know,
does happen when you get older too, because you're like, oh my gosh, this is the annoying little brother,
but
annoying little sister.
is
How
that
embarrassing.
is that our job to keep ingraining in them?
Yes.
How
Yeah.
how do we keep doing that?
I think it's just showing them the importance of family and the dynamic, and just every time they have an argument and it gets so big, I'm always like, "Hey, you need to understand that you guys need to respect each other because you only have one brother and you only have one sister. This is
Yeah,
all you have. When something happens or if me and dad are not here anymore, you guys will have each other." And I think they actually understand that, because when I say that, they're like, "Oh, right, because that's the only brother and sister that you have in this world."
I think ending every night with them together is probably solidifying those family values too.
Yes.
So like, a lot of times Enzo says, "I want to sleep in sister's room," and she's sleeping on her bed and he's sleeping on a cushion on the floor. And sometimes I'm like, "No, Enzo, you need to sleep in your own room because I kind of want him to grow independent." But maybe sleeping in the same room together will help that family dynamic for them.
Yeah, and I think it's okay, like every once in a while, like they just like each other's company. And yes, we don't want them to have to rely on someone being there all the time in order for them to sleep comfortably through the night. But I think that also just helps them to build that friendship and relationship.
Is there also like right now when Leia goes to school, a lot of times they get invited to friends' birthday parties and
Mm-hmm.
all these events, and we don't usually go to those. But if we start allowing her to go to these friends' birthday parties, because sometimes they're not even really friends in school, right? It's just everyone kind of has to invite the whole class, so no one
Yeah.
gets left out and whatnot. But if we allow her to go to these events, we have to allow Enzo to go with her. So
Mm-hmm.
now when she shows up to the birthday parties, "Hey guys, happy birthday. Thanks for inviting me and my brother."
Yeah.
And now it's like everything they do together is also with the brother.
Well, yeah, I guess it depends, because I think right now, because they're so young and we don't really have too many options, we have to go everywhere together and we have to bring them both along. But I think as they get older, I think either you're letting the birthday family know that you're gonna have to bring a sibling, or I think for the most part now, parents either just have one parent go with that kid and just take them and kind of keep it separate.
I'm sorry, but I'm gonna be that parent that brings both kids
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's fine. It's just
because he's gonna be sad and feel left out. Which
true.
which which is actually what we want him to learn is that you shouldn't feel sad and left out.
Yes.
Maybe if you took her to the birthday party and I'm gonna take him to go play soccer,
Yeah,
or
and
but
that might work.
I don't know. That's where it's like I don't want Leia to be like these are my friends.
Yeah. I don't know. I think we'll cross that bridge when it happens. But as of right now, like we're a unit and we usually stick together for these kind of events.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's man, I don't know. I love that we have two kids who are close in age. I think it was the best decision for us, maybe not for you guys, you know. Um, but one thing that I don't like about having two kids close in age is, you're right. Earlier, you said that we had all the time. We had 2 years with Leia by ourselves, and we
Mm-hmm.
never had 2 years with Enzo by ourselves.
Yeah.
So a lot of times at night, he's sleeping in his bed, and we bring him into our room so he can sleep with us.
Yeah.
Because we got to do that with Leia for 2 years. You know,
Yeah. She got 100% of our time, and we would just be able to cuddle with her and hold her and do all these things with her. And it's just so funny because we're trying to teach them to be independent and have them sleep in their own rooms. But I think as parents, we're the ones that are like, well, we got to give in. Which kid should we bring in tonight?
so, well, we passed the point of co-sleeping, right? We do put them in their beds separately. They fall asleep separately, and then we will bring Enzo over or bring Leia over. We take turns, and
Not always,
they
but
not
sometimes.
always, but when we feel like we want to be with our babies, right? Um, just feel like when we do it and bring them over to our bed, it's when they're sleeping and they're not aware of it, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
like they don't even know that they're co-sleeping with us. It's kind of like we're just doing it because we miss our babies,
Yeah.
you know. So,
But
um,
for the most part, if we don't do it, they're gonna come into our room anyway. So
yeah,
yeah, and I think last night we were talking about this, and we're like, all right, which kid are we bringing in tonight? And then in the end, we're like, Leia had all this time with us, Enzo didn't really get it, so he's still our baby. Let's just bring him in.
right.
Yeah.
So I guess with that type of feeling, do you have any regrets of having kids close in age like that because you didn't get to be with Enzo 100%?
I would say I don't regret it because at the same time, who's to say that if Leia was older, that she would be more independent, right? But at the same time, she may have more needs to tend to. So it's like
Mm,
even if we wanted to be able to have that baby phase with Enzo and be able to go through the same things that we did with Leia, like I don't think that would happen no matter what. Like no matter what age she's at,
yeah.
because the needs are different and the attention is different and it doesn't matter. That first kid is always going to be the luckiest kid because they got all of our time and attention and affection. Whereas any kid after that, like they're just going to have to split their time.
Yeah, that's true. And the more attention keeps going with the first kid because everything is always new with the first kid. With the
Yes.
second kid, you've experienced it, so from your experience and dealing with it, the you get straight to the point,
Yeah.
right? So you don't spend as much time.
Yeah, and for me too, like when I think about it, having two kids closer in age, I just worry that they're gonna be fighting for our time because if they're that close in age, they have similar needs and things that need to get done, and it's like
I mean, we just got to share it like they're twins.
I know, true, but it's like you want to both because for us when we had Leia, we were both so invested in everything. We went to everything together with her. But then when it comes to this, like if they're in school and they need, I don't know, they need to go to school dances or they have like plays and other events, we might have to split it now where it's like, okay, well, you have to go to hers and I got to go to his because it's at the same time. Like, what do we do?
Man, I mean, there are so many school activities that it's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't remember having that many when I was going to school and ever having my parents come to any of them, but also it did add to some trauma from when I was growing up. So yeah, I mean, we should definitely be there every time. It's a lot, and I think you parents know that and agree with that too. It's like there's just trying to be involved in your kid's school life is so hard, But kudos to every parent that's doing that out right now because um, you guys have to make that effort. If you can be there for your kid, just be there. There's no, you got to think about when your parents weren't there for you and how much that sucked. So let's try to not. put that on our kids, and just
Yeah.
just suck it up and be there.
Yes.
Okay,
And now
so
I'm thinking back of all the childhood trauma of like, where were my parents for all of these things? Because they had to
they were
work.
working.
And
Yeah,
I think that's why it's so ingrained in us to like be present parents and to just make sure that we're there for them. And you just kind of create a system and you kind of get used to it. I think right now, because our kids are so young, whenever we're like, oh no, their events are at the same time, what are we gonna do? All right, dad, you take her to school first, let me drop him off, and I'm gonna meet you back up. You just save a spot for me and stuff like that. And I
right.
feel that's probably how it's gonna be when they get older and stuff too. So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to, these elementary years with these kids and seeing how they develop together and just where their dynamic takes them.
Yeah.
I'm excited to witness it all.
Yep.
You
And I
know.
think it's going to be very crucial for us as parents to make sure that we continue to teach them how important their relationship and how important family
Yeah.
is. Because,
Well,
yeah.
so final answer, having kids close in age, should you do it or not? It's really up to you guys, right? And how you are financially, how you are with your relationship with your significant other. If you guys can handle that, you definitely need a strong bond for that. But if all is well and you have all that, you have your foundations, I think having two kids close in age is awesome.
Yeah.
That's just from our
Yeah,
experience.
and I'm just saying from my own personal experience too, like having that just having siblings closer in age, like you have things that you can relate to. And now that we're all older, like we can talk about things and be on the same page and understand what everyone is going through because we're all mentally there already, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I hope this episode helps you guys out. If you have any questions that we didn't get to, feel free to ask on YouTube and Spotify. Spotify now has comments. So go ahead and do all that. Make sure to follow us on all podcast platforms. Follow us on YouTube. Give us some likes, some hearts, all that. And we'll see you guys next time on the Love and Rice podcast.
Bye.